Kung Fu Panda gets another TV series as new trailers for Ms.Marvel, Tokyo Vice, and Halo are released online, and the Play-Doh movie is announced as a real, actual thing that's happening in our world within the next few years. I'm Joe Acierno.
And I'm Darius Delsoin. This is Cinema Unchained.
All right, folks, welcome to Cinema Unchained. Now, I know at the end of the last episode, I may or may not have mentioned something about reviewing the film Deepwater on this episode, but I'm going to be honest, over the last week, my personal interest in actually seeing the movie disappeared to nothing. Going to be honest, I'm going to plead guilty in reading a few of the reviews, seeing the runtime of the film of about 2 hours, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not wasting 2 hours on this. But Darius, you actually did get a chance to watch this, right? So mind just telling us real quick, was it worth it? Was it not? Thoughts overall?
It was confusing to watch because I guess it revolves really around a guy, and he kind of has his wife basically doing certain things that she shouldn't be doing, especially when you're in a committed relationship. And for him, he kind of goes through not really a process, but we uncover things about him that he's weird and he's not all there in his head, and how he goes about dealing with this is also very dangerous. I think it really leads, it tries to explain the effects of, I guess, a toxic relationship, but it's a mixture of, they double down on it, and I don't think it had really a clear vision. I think the ending really what messed it up for me, because it was just an awkward feeling movie. It felt odd. It didn't sit right with me, I guess, morally. So that's why for me I struggled a bit with this movie, because I didn't understand the message, at least entirely. And I think it felt like it would go in one direction, then it wouldn't, then it would go and steer in a different direction. Like, it's kind of felt a bit all over the place. Performances I thought were great. I mean, Ana de Armas, honestly, in my opinion, this is the one movie where I really hated her. But overall, just it was an odd movie to watch. That's
but odd in not a good way, so to say.
Yeah,
right?
Odd and not in a good way.
Gotcha. All right, so there you have it. Guess I didn't lie to you. We did, or really, you did get a review of Deepwater on this show. All right, so now, just at this point, before we really get into things, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and more. If you want to help out the show, please give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you can, and follow our social media pages that are listed in the description. All right, now, Darius, you and I, a couple nights ago, we just happened to be out, and you mentioned something about the Play-Doh movie.
Yep.
Because we were talking about topics to talk, for this episode today, and then you mentioned the Play-Doh movie, and I'm like, what in the actual fuck are you talking about? Because I couldn't believe it when you first told me. And then, of course, I turned on the Google on the internet machine, and I Googled Play-Doh movie, and this is actually happening. This is actually happening. A Play-Doh movie is in the works about the, quote, importance of imagination. Or really, as I put it, just like the alarming fact that Hollywood is just so out of ideas. And it's funny, too, like in the article that I found, the plot details of this film, if you really want to call it that, plot details are currently under wraps. And I'm thinking to myself, like, plot details are currently under wraps. What the fuck kind of plot could there possibly be with something like this?
I mean, we're also living in a world where we got the Lego movie. A movie based on Legos and the idea of Legos with multiple different IPs and creativity. So, I mean, a Play-Doh movie, it is definitely shocking. But I think with the right creative team and direction, it could work. It could work.
Listen, there's a lot of convincing, for me personally, that has to be done in order for anything like this to work. And again, even the most talented people sign on for the wrong projects. They get involved in the wrong things. And even if they get involved in the right things, they still screw it up there sometimes. It happens to the best of us, right? Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, you have John M. Chu, who's the director of In the Heights and Crazy Rich Asians. He's producing the film. And then you have Emily V. Gordon, the Oscar-nominated co-screenwriter of The Big Sick. Fantastic film. If you haven't gotten around to watching that, I believe it's on Amazon Prime still. definitely check that out. It's an excellent, excellent movie. And here's the thing, like, upon reading that, I'm like, both of them are so talented. What are they thinking? What are they thinking with this? Like, can you imagine, like, working so hard to make it in Hollywood, to make it in the film industry, and you're told that, oh, by the way, you're going to be working on the Play-Doh movie. I mean, it just... I don't know. I'm speechless. I'm speechless at this point.
I mean, like I said, I think both of them are, they're really talented. One of them was Oscar nominated. The other is, he was part of, In the Heights. And I thought that was an incredible movie. And Crazy Rich Asians, which was probably one of my favorite movies within the past, 5 years. Because I absolutely love Crazy Rich Asians. Even second viewing, I still get a good laugh, still get a good tear. Love that movie. So I think something is going on in their heads. They have some sort of idea, or they're forging something that could possibly be special. And again, I have to go back to the Lego movie because, again, when you think about Legos and Lego movie, it's just like, what are they going to do? Then you have Chris Miller, and that duo on behind the project, and look at what happened. They were able to make a 2. They were able to make a sequel. So I mean,
that's fair.
It's weird times. It's odd that out of all the things, it's Play-Doh, but the creative team.
Play-Doh. It's Play-Doh. I mean, here's the thing. You mentioned the Lego movie, right? And again, that is a great point. But at the same time, are we automatically going to assume that every random obscure movie idea is going to be the Lego movie? Because again, movies like the Lego movie, in my opinion, and I think you're with me there, are kind of they're tough to come by, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Are we automatically going to assume that the Play-Doh movie is going to have the unexpected brilliance of the Lego movie?
Yeah, with that in mind, then I'm not sure. I don't think so, but again, we never know. That's the craziest part about Hollywood, is that, and all these films, is that you never know. And even with No Way Home, the fact that we have 3 Spider-Man sharing the same screen, one in the actual hell,
That's different. That's actually a cool idea on its face.
Yes.
Starting right off the bat, it's actually a really cool idea. A movie about Play-Doh is not.
I'm trying to have a little hope in this film.
Listen, don't get me wrong. And you're right. Nothing's impossible. Right? Nothing is impossible. But at the same time, is it probable? Is it probable that this will be something worth doing?
Yeah.
At this point, no. No, it's not. Again, stranger things have happened. But I can't think of anything at the moment. But stranger things, I'm sure, have happened out there. But I'm floored. I'm honestly floored by this development. What's happened to movies? That's all I can say. I really ask, what has happened to movies?
Yeah, it's like I said, it could be something. It could not be something. Do I think it will be like a movie? No, but I think it has the potential to possibly be something like that. But it's
in like a parallel universe, maybe.
Damn, Joe.
Maybe not. And here's what I was thinking too. You know what? If a movie can be made about Play-Doh, you know what? Maybe we'll make it someday. We have to make it someday. If the high rollers in the industry are making movies about Play-Doh, right? So we have to have a better chance than we might think at the moment.
Oh no.
Oh God. All right. So yeah, if you haven't turned us off quite yet, do you have any thoughts on? Again, can't believe I'm saying this. The Play-Doh movie. Leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can, whether it's on YouTube or on our social media pages. Just we really want to hear what you think about this one, because I can't even believe that we're talking about this one. But this is something so crazy that we just can't avoid talking about this one. All right, so now moving forward, we got a new trailer this past week for the Halo TV series. Now again, I know movies and TV shows based on video games don't have the best reputation a lot of the times. But I remember years ago when I first heard about Halo being made into either a movie or a TV series, even though I never played the games religiously, I had a general idea as far as what they're about. I'm like, all right, if that's done well, maybe that could be something. And if you don't know, this is based, of course, on the popular video game series. as extraterrestrials wage war on humanity in the 26th century. Now, Darius, are you a fan of the games?
I am a massive fan of the games. I had the original Xbox, the 360, every single Xbox I've had gotten. I've played every single Halo game, and I've read a good chunk of the books. I love Halo.
They have Halo books?
Yes. Yes, they do.
Alrighty. So how do you feel about this show? Because it's weird. I was expecting something that looked a bit more cinematic, but again, maybe that's just because like I first heard about this and it was like supposed to be a movie, right? If I remember correctly, Peter Jackson was attached to have a hand in this.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched the last couple of trailers and I'm sure the visuals are fine, especially for a TV show. But it looks very much like a stereotypical sci-fi TV show. Like from like what I've seen of commercials for like the newer Star Trek TV series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I got kind of similar feelings to those, if that makes sense.
Understandable. I mean, like, as a Halo fan, it's cool to finally see a live-action interpretation of this character and this world, because I think there's a lot they can do with it. There's a lot of lore and backstory already. There's about, like, 15 different Halo games that aren't part of the main narrative. You know, there's like Halo Wars, Halo ODST. There's so many different Halo properties that they can look into and really dive deep into the lore of the Spartans, how they came about. They're essentially super soldiers, let's face it. That's really what the Spartans are. But you know, and Master Chief is an iconic character. He's an iconic character for Xbox. And that's also going to be interesting to see what they do with him. If a lot of fans probably already know his history and backstory, and from the show, it seems like they're going in a drastic different direction. But I think overall, for me, I'm disappointed and I'm upset because this is such a huge IP, and it doesn't feel like they're honoring it cinematically, at least, because this should have been a movie, not a show. That's just my opinion. Should have been a movie. But even as a show, I am impressed with some of the visuals, but not all of them. But at this point, for me, it's officially, I have to watch at least the first 2 episodes to see how I feel. I've already been hearing negative things, but just from the trailers, I'm already upset with a few things. And one of them is something that you just don't do with characters that have helmets on and their helmets stay on. But I digress. I'm disappointed. I'm upset, but I gotta watch at least the first 2 episodes to really see how I feel about it.
Yeah, because if it's one thing that I got from the trailers, and again, this is coming from someone who didn't really play the games. I think maybe played like, I don't know, Halo 3 like a couple times with my friends, but you know, I never really got into it. And based on the trailer, it's weird. Like, I don't know if this is what they're going for, but the story feels very unfocused. Like, I don't know exactly what it's about. Like, you know, it showed, like, throughout a big chunk of the trailer, it showed, like, a bunch of, like, scattered characters, and I'm like, okay, who am I supposed to be rooting for? Who are, like, the side characters here? Or is there anyone, like, helping? Like, I know Master Chief was, like, you know, the big dog, right? Like, you know, he's the main character. But even then, like, even just based on watching the trailer, it's like, is he even the main character in this show? And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just like a crazy speculation, but like it didn't feel like the show was about him.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like there are definitely certain characters in the show that you see that are from like Halo 3 that played a big part in Master Chief, you know, and even Halo in general. You know, Dr. Halsey, she basically had a hand in creating one of the best, you know, space Spartans and soldiers ever. Spartan 11, John 117, you know, Master Chief himself. And, you know, and he has a pretty tragic, the idea of the Spartans and what they are and how they came to be is actually pretty tragic. So being able to see that in live action interpretation would be cool. However, my issue with from the trailers is that is not solely focused on Master Chief to the point where like this is going to feel like Halo. You know, it's
Gotcha.
cool that they want to go into the the galactic politics of things, because that is something Halo has done, and quite heavily as well, and even ethically because of what they did to the Spartans. But just overall, it felt and looked unfocused, and that's my biggest worry. And seeing other people online also talking about this Halo show, they're all basically we're saying the similar things, that this doesn't look Halo. It looks like it's just a sci-fi action with Halo slapped on. It doesn't feel like Master Chief. It has the visual elements of Halo, but it doesn't look or feel like Halo, considering what they're also doing with the character of Master Chief, specifically.
So do you have, this premieres on Paramount Plus on March 24th. Do you have Paramount Plus? Because I don't.
I do not, but if there's a free trial, then I'll do it. But I want it to be good, but I'm not sure. And hearing what one of the showrunners has said about the show and how they wanted to tackle it is also very worrying. He was basically saying that, we didn't take a look at the games. We didn't take a look at any of the Halo mediums. We wanted to do our own thing. And I'm just like, it's
fucking stupid.
Oh my, you don't sit like, what? You gotta do your homework.
Here's the thing, when it comes to adapting anything, how can you adapt something if you haven't really experienced that thing that you're adapting? Can you imagine, for example, the Lord of the Rings movies, right? Can you imagine Peter Jackson not reading any of the books before sitting down to co-write the script? I mean, come on. That makes literally no sense.
Yeah, and that's just a quick sum up of what he said. There's more, but the basic gist of it is that, we didn't really go to the Halo games or any of the other Halo mediums. We just knew of the character and went our way. And it's just that's not how you, at least in my eyes, that's not how you properly adapt an IP like Halo, or really any IP you're adapting into a game, movie, show, that sort of thing. So with that alone, I am very worried. Very worried.
Yeah, because here's the thing, if obviously, you're not going to have everybody play the games, right? That's attached to the sort of project, but at least hire some people, hire people on the writing team that have a personal attachment to the franchise. And even as from a producer's end, say you're a producer that hasn't played the games, okay, the writers who have played the games hand you the treatments, the scripts, or whatever, and you see from your point of view as an audience member if it works thematically, if it works from a storytelling point of view. But don't go about this with the approach that we're not really checking out the source material. That makes literally no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. So we'll just, I guess, if seems like we've gotten some reception for the show already, and it seems to be kind of mixed, maybe a little bit towards the negative end. And based on what I saw in the trailer, I feel like that's how it would end up being anyway, how it would end up being received anyway. So for all you guys, do you have any thoughts on the Halo series? Do you actually plan on checking it out? Are you a big fan of the games? Are you not a big fan of the games? Leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. All right. Now, another thing, Darius, that you really wanted to talk about was the fact that Netflix has announced that it will be experimenting with charging extra for sharing passwords between accounts in multiple houses. This comes, of course, as Netflix has recently raised prices in the U.S. And it's funny enough, too, that Shang-Yi Long, the director of product innovation at Netflix, has stated that account sharing is, quote, impacting Netflix's ability to invest in great new TV and films for its members, a.k.a. it's stopping them from making more money on subscriptions. So what is it about this that you wanted to talk about so badly?
So, I mean, just this is them testing it out right now in select different countries. I believe. So the idea that they are, because I remember a couple years ago they did say that they were going to double down on people on Netflix Netflix account holders sharing their passwords, right? And that they wanted to crack on that. And now we're seeing and hearing that they are testing that ability of, okay, you have a password, you're going to share it, basically the feature is going to be add another member thing for $3 extra. You know, and or at least it equates to about $3 from the select country that they're doing. When you translate to USD, it's supposed to be around $3. It could be more when they finally roll it out, but the fact that they're already starting to test that and implement that in a way, then it's like, okay, it could be coming sooner rather than later. You know, and the fact that and it's not necessarily they're saying you can't share your passwords. Oh no, you can, but just
it comes at a price.
It comes at a price, you know, and $3 more onto your subscription, which, you know, the Netflix subscription is already high enough. But again, adding another account, 2 extra accounts. I think it's 2 extra accounts or so. That's basically the total of $6 added onto your membership. Now, and this is adding people outside of like your household, not within their household. That's the thing.
Not like having your separate profiles per the one account. Like my family's Netflix account, like we're 6 people. My mom and dad have one profile. The rest of us have like, you know, our own profiles.
Exactly.
But this is different.
Exactly. So it's basically adding just that element, an actual almost not really household, but just one member outside of that household. So I think it's interesting that they're not basically saying, oh, you can't do it anymore. We're not going to disable your account, anything like that. You know, thievery. No, you can't do this. But they're just like, you know what? You want to do it? We're going to capitalize off of it. That's the thing. We'll charge you $3 extra. But yeah. So I found that interesting that they're basically saying, okay, keep doing it. But just remember, it's going to be $3 extra. That's it.
It's like, it's weird. It's kind of like a compromise between, you know, allowing people to just do it willy-nilly and then like really cracking down on people, right? So like instead of, you know, disabling accounts, it's like, okay, we'll level with you, but you just got to give us a little extra. Like you're not going to have to pay the full price for like another subscription, and you're still going to have your account, but you got to fork us over a little extra.
Which, and this might be odd for me to say this, I think it's okay. I mean, it's
from a business point of view, it makes sense.
Yeah,
honestly.
It makes sense. That's the thing. And it's like you're already paying a lot for Netflix, right? $3 extra typically won't usually hurt or whatever, but like, you know, I guess it's that thing of like, okay, you're sharing passwords, and it's almost like you're sharing a free account. You know, they're not paying anything, but you know that sort of thing. Which again, you know, a lot of people have been doing that for years, but I guess Netflix really wants to crack down on it. So a part of me is like, this is kind of fair, you know. That's the thing.
It's fair. Like don't get me wrong, it sucks for us, the customer, a little bit, but like again, it makes sense. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Like, do we want to pay extra for sharing passwords? No, of course not. But like, it just logically makes sense. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it does. I mean.
Exactly. It's not like, oh, hey, you want to share it? Okay, that's $18 more, you know, basically for a whole account. Or it's like, no, just a little bit, not a lot. Yeah. Or at least what they think is a little bit. Some people may think it's a lot. That's a whole other thing. But still, I found it interesting because a part of me, when I saw this, I was like, that's actually kind of fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for everybody, what do you think of this new development? Like I said, obviously none of us want to pay extra for sharing passwords, but like, do you think that this little concession here is fair? Like, you know, do you think it's too much? Will this impact like how, basically, like, you know, how you view Netflix, like, you know, how you, you know, like that sort of thing. So leave your thoughts in that comment section. And just before we get into our next topic, aka another Kung Fu Panda series on Netflix this time, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, YouTube, and so much more. If you want to help out the show, please give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you can, and follow our social media pages that are listed in the description. All right, now, like I previously stated, Netflix has ordered a new series centered around the Kung Fu Panda franchise titled Kung Fu Panda: The Dragon Knight. The thing that's different about this series this time around is Jack Black is actually returning to voice Po, and it follows Po as he leaves his home to journey across the world, teaming up with a stern English knight named the Wandering Blade to find magical weapons in order to save the world from destruction is what I meant to say. My experience with Kung Fu Panda has, I don't know, it's been kind of funny. Like, I haven't seen the second and third films, but I just remember the first film being much better than expected, being much better than it had any business being, about literally animals doing kung fu. I'll never forget. When I was 10, I went to go see the B movie in theaters. Right?
Oh.
And one of the trailers, one of the previews that I had before the film was Kung Fu Panda. And I remember thinking to myself, again, like, I'm 10 at this point, and I'm like, that looks stupid. Kung Fu Panda, like, oh, what's that? Not only did the movie I went there to see that day, B movie, end up being just weird, and honestly, like, looking back, like, really just kind of bad. Like, Kung Fu Panda, like, was actually great. Like, watching that months later, like, I was just, like, really surprised at how great this movie was, how funny it was, how thrilling the action was, how wise it ended up being. Like, that was a movie, like I said, that I had no business being as good as it was, but I'm happy it is the way it is. Now, of course, you've obviously seen Kung Fu Panda. Have you seen the second and third films? Are they any good?
Yeah, I've seen the second and third ones. I think third one was meh. Second one was alright. But you know, I love Kung Fu Panda. I love Jack Black. I love Po. I love how it's a big panda doing kung fu and flipping around. That's just so cool to see. And plus, I like pandas actually. And I remember they did the show on Netflix like a while ago, but that didn't feel the same. And I don't think Jack Black was in that one. So knowing that they're doing a new show and Jack Black himself is returning, I'm actually pretty excited. I'm pretty excited. He was one of the best
parts. He was one of the best parts of the movies. You know, that movie wouldn't have been as well received as it was. It wouldn't have been as good as it was if it wasn't for Jack Black at the center. And again, that movie had a lot going for it. You know, the animation was great, music was excellent, voice cast was terrific. Honestly, I think someone else who's very underrated in that film is Dustin Hoffman as Master Shifu. I thought he honestly, yes. I feel like he might be my favorite character in that movie, honestly. But that being said, this new series, like, having Jack Black at its center yet again, could honestly, I think it could be really interesting. And I'm just wondering too, you know, with Po being the way he is, right? Like, the sort of, like, you know, goofy, you know, lackadaisical character, like, kind of thrown into the kung fu, and then you have this other character that's teaming up with that's supposed to be a bit more on the serious end of things. I wonder how that's going to go. I feel like that could be an interesting dynamic. But at the same time, we've kind of already seen it, too, between Po and Master Shifu. Because, again, Master Shifu is very much the same way.
Exactly. So it's going to be nice to see new dynamics as well in the show. But also, another thing, considering it's a show, and I don't think they've even said this, is what's the time frame? Is this after 1, after 2, after 3? Like, that I'm really interested in knowing. I think it would make sense for it to be after 3, but still, where does it fit in that timeline? I think that'll be interesting to know as well. Like, that'll be pretty cool to at least know of where it takes place. Because if it's after 3, then it's like, oh, there's more in Kung Fu Panda that they're willing to tell. And is there a possibility of a Kung Fu Panda 4 movie? I doubt it, but it could be on the table.
Not. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I haven't seen 2 and 3, but I feel like most of the time, like, you know, if just things should just be a trilogy. Like, there comes a point when things just run for too long.
Yeah.
And if Kung Fu Panda ended off on a relatively decent note, then why? And that's another thing. That's another thing I'm curious too, as far as, like, about the show. Why is this happening now? Especially when you have numerous series of shorts that have already been spawned off of, you know, the Kung Fu Panda movies.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing where it's like certain stories are meant to just end and stop and start anew, you know, and start new ones. But nope, they want to keep IPs going as long as, you know, 3 generations, but 4 or 5, whatever it may be. But that's just how it is sometimes. I mean, like a Star Wars.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, that's. Oh boy, yeah. So that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother discussion for another day. But what do you all think of the idea of yet another Kung Fu Panda series being developed? Does Jack Black is what I meant to say. So good at talking. does Jack Black being at the center of this series like change anything for you? Does the fact that it's a Netflix series change anything for you? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. All right, now another thing, Darius, that you did a great job. You did most of the picking as far as like topics for today. The trailer for the upcoming HBO Max series Tokyo Vice was released this past week, and it follows a Western journalist as he investigates a powerful Tokyo crime boss. And I'm going to be honest, this looks really cool. This looks really, really cool. I love the stakes that I play here. I love the idea of, because we've seen the whole thing as far as like, journalists getting comfortable with nefarious figures to write a good story, right? But there's something that feels different about this. I like the mix of martial arts and organized crime and corruption. Yes. I love all the stakes that seem to be at play here. So honestly, this looks really cool so far.
Same here. Like, I think the big thing for me that drew me was honestly the title, Tokyo Vice. The fact that I saw Tokyo, I was like, oh, we're in Japan. Awesome, I'm in. I like Japanese. I want to, like, one of the places in the world I want to go to is, I honestly, Japan. And even Japanese mythology. I love all of that. And so when I heard, as I'm watching the trailer and the idea of this reporter going into a place like Japan to tell a story, and he's mixing in with like the underground, the crime lords, and even the Yakuza, and all of that just interested me. And for me, again, as a martial arts fan as well, seeing a dojo and martial arts, it's like, this seems pretty cool, and I'm in. This is more interesting than I thought I would be for a show like this. That's the other thing too.
Yeah, there's something. It's weird that there's something that feels like kind of elevated about a show like this. There's something that feels almost kind of cinematic about this too. The tone feels, again, we're just going off of speculation based on a trailer, but the tone of this feels very chilling. And another thing that I think this seems to have going for it so far is the casting. Ken Watanabe has always been very interesting. He definitely has a sort of commanding presence. But the other main cast member is Ansel Elgort, right? And there are just a couple questions that I have with him. I wonder how the show was going to do with certain like misconduct allegations against him too. So like, will as many people be willing to watch the show? Because like, I don't know if anything was ever proven or anything like that, but a lot of times when that's thrown at you, like that sticks. Let's be real, whether it ends up being true or not. And another question I have too is, can Ansel Elgort hold his own against someone like Ken Watanabe?
Yeah, that I think one of the big things with the show is also, as you just said, is seeing that dynamic at play. Is he going to hold himself up for this? And a part of me actually thinks he can. I don't know. I think he can. Obviously, Ken Watanabe has been around much longer, and he's just a great actor overall. But I think Ansel Elgort is going to introduce a new level. And again, this is also really a perspective of a different ethnicity and a perspective of a journalist compared to Ken Watanabe's character. And I think that in itself is going to add more value to the dynamic between the two and throughout the other cast members and the other aspects of the show. So, and again, that's why I'm excited about it, because it's like, how is he going to react to this person, a Yakuza member, this and that, and people doing martial arts that maybe he's not that adept at just yet, or maybe he's training, that sort of thing. So I'm interested. I'm really stoked for this show.
I'm interested too, and I just hope that Ansel Elgort can hold himself against someone like Ken Watanabe, again, someone who has such a, like I said, like a big, and like I said before, commanding presence about him, because you have to believe the conflict too. Like, everyone loves the David and Goliath story, right? But the conflict has to make sense. You have to be able to believe the fact that, oh, this person can stand a chance against this other person. There has to be something inside both of them that puts them both on like the same playing field, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Not so much same. Yeah, I don't know about like, same play, not like the same status, but like there has to be something in each character that you're like, what, this person tangling with this other person makes sense. Like one of my favorite things when it comes to this. My favorite example is The Lion King, right? Like the conflict between James Earl Jones as Mufasa and Jeremy Irons as Scar. Like those two characters, excuse me, and those two, I guess, voice actors having a sort of conflict with each other, it makes sense. Like there's a certain gravitas that both voice actors and characters have to both of them. Mm-hmm. And when when the 2019 CGI version came out of The Lion King, the casting was announced for that. James Earl Jones was back as Mufasa. Okay, great, commanding, intimidating presence, big presence, gravitas. Then you had Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar. And I'm like, okay, like Chiwetel Ejiofor is a great actor, but does he have the same gravitas as James Earl Jones? And will he be able to bring that to Scar? And I'm going to be honest with that, I was skeptical at first, but he ended up doing a better job than I thought. Still not the same as the original, but still. So that's like one of the only concerns that I have with this Tokyo Vice series. But other than that, it looks really cool. Like I will honestly be looking forward to checking this out.
Yep, same here. I'm very much interested, very excited. And again, I want to go to Japan, so it's like this is the closest thing I'll get.
Yeah, I was gonna say that cost of that plane ticket's not going down anytime soon. So you know what? I'll settle for this.
Exactly.
All right, so this premieres on HBO Max on April 7th, and are any of you actually going to check this out? Did you get a chance to watch the trailer? Highly recommend that you check it out. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. All right, now to cap off the show. Yeah, Marvel just seems to be pumping out stuff like it's a fucking factory at this point, okay? The trailer for Ms.Marvel was released this past week, and it's a new or really upcoming series that's going to premiere on Disney Plus on June 8th. And it follows like a young girl who is growing up and being raised in Jersey City, and she discovers out of nowhere that she has like on IMDb, it said like a polymorphous set of powers. Just like it feels like a weird set of like, random powers that you can do random things. Like kind of like, I don't know, kind of like Elsa's ice powers in Frozen. Like there's no real like confined terms to the powers, but that just seems to be what we're dealing with Ms.Marvel. You kind of breathed sigh there. What's behind that?
Oh, the whole polymorph thing, because it's like she does not have her powers from the comics, but we'll get into that. For me, here's the thing: I'm not a big Ms.Marvel fan, but I like the character. I like that she's this weird, quirky character in the comics. That she's a fanatic and of superhero genre. Like to me, I like that. I think this is cool. There's a lot you can do with those type of characters. To a certain extent. Spider-Man over the course of the years had those elements, but again, those aren't really the defining traits. But Ms. Marvel, those kind of are. So one of the things I like about the show aesthetically, I really like. I like that Same. It's kind of imbuing some of those comic booky elements into live action, as if her character, because again, she's a very animated character, so seeing that that's in her mind as well, I don't know, that's pretty neat, that's pretty cool. However, I am also upset about this show because this character has only been around for about 10 years, so still relatively new. She still does, she's still a new character. One of the things about her is that she has powers in a similar set as Mr. Fantastic. That's her shtick. She can elongate her arms, her body. She can be taller, shrink. That's what she can do. She has a very similar power set as Mr. Fantastic. But they completely ignored that and changed it for the show, and I don't understand why. Because
I thought you were referencing something like that in the trailer. I'm like, I don't remember seeing anything like that in the trailer. But sorry, go ahead.
Again, this is just the comic book nerd in me. It's just like, why change something about a character that's still so new, that is literally meant for a younger audience and for other people to probably get into comics too? This is a good character to start off, but it's like, why change those superhero elements? Again, that's just that's just me. I don't like it when they do that. And not only that, but like, okay, she's a Captain Marvel fanatic, right? Now you're giving her similar powers as Captain Marvel, essentially. cosmic like powers from an amulet, it's I that's very off for me. That's just me personally.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that. It kind of feels weird. Like, okay, why do you have more than one character with like the powers of Captain Marvel? But we'll just see. I think one of the big tasks that the show has for it is, again, differentiating itself from other MCU series. And I'm gonna be honest, floor is kind of low there in terms of like, quality, as far as like, okay, like how can this be better than the other ones? But I don't know. But like one of the things that did stand out to me, building off as far as like what you're saying about the character herself, Kamala Khan. There's the fact that she's like very much a comic book nerd, like a superhero nerd. There's something that feels very endearing about that so far. Like she's definitely this quirky character that is kind of struggling with daydreaming, but at the same time like growing up and coming of age. It's weird. Like that. This has like a coming of age. This has the coming of age aspect of Spider-Man with like the powers of Captain Marvel. So that's an interesting mix so far. And the idea that she's like giddy towards superhero lore and becoming a superhero, I'm waiting to see like that maturing responsibility moment that makes her turn from like that giddy kid to that responsible hero that steps up for the greater good, not just with her own excitement and satisfaction of being a superhero, right? Because one of the great things that I noticed with Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? One of the criticisms that I've read about the Tom Holland Spider-Man films is that like the first two films, like nothing really happens to him emotionally that makes him Spider-Man. Because if you look at the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, you look at the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films, like they all they both experience things that darken them and then help them really become who Spider-Man is, right? Mature them to enough that like, okay, this is something serious, and you have that personal attachment to wanting to doing good, to like fighting crime and just like actually helping people out, not just for your own satisfaction. But that of course changes with No Way Home when in No Way Home when Aunt May dies, right? Like that's when Tom Holland Spider-Man makes that transition. So, and I feel like the only way like this show can really pull it off is if something like that happens to Kamala Khan. Like that idea that like, okay, like you have these powers, these aren't just for you. These are supposed to be for helping other people out, right?
Yep.
Helping other people out that can't necessarily help themselves in certain situations. So I'm waiting to see like how this show goes about that particular moment.
Yeah, I am curious about that because, when it comes to some of these young heroes, and this is why it's like, I liked Hawkeye. Like, out of all the shows, honestly, Hawkeye is probably one of my favorites.
Same.
And the reason why was because even for Kate Bishop, someone who wanted to be a hero, right? She may not have powers, but something did personally happen to her that made her realize that it takes a lot more to be a hero, and that's sacrifice. She found out her own mom basically turned, was a villain, in her eyes, simplifying it, was a villain, and it hit her. And she had to go with Hawkeye. So that was a whole other thing. She went from this status of wealth and privilege to now being on the street floor. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just, it knocked some sense into her as well as a character, which, and I appreciate that. And I love that, actually. So I hope
too, like when she was younger, when this is in the very beginning of the show, when the first attack on New York, right, with the armies of Loki, right, whoever those creatures were, when they attacked New York and basically destroyed New York, she was there, she was living there, and she lost her father in the process too. So that kind of like knocked her down a few pegs too, to that point where like she could again like understand the weight of having certain abilities.
Exactly. So and I hope Kamala Khan can get some of that character development and growth in the show. And this isn't about losing a member or anything, but understanding that. And to be frank, this is so true with what Uncle Ben has said to Peter Parker. With great power comes great responsibility. You know? So and I hope they really delve into that. And again, I like Kamala Khan. Like, I'm one of the comic book fans that actually like her as a character and as a person. She's pretty cool. She's, especially the superhero nerdy aspect, cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some of the creative liberties they've taken with her power set, and the fact that she's not inhuman kind of throws a lot of also kind of who she is as well out of the window, and it's upsetting. So basically, let's make her Green Lantern. I'm like, god damn it.
No, we'll just have to see, what happens with this show. Like I said before, it premieres on Disney Plus on June 8th. And what do you all think of Ms. Marvel? Did you get a chance to watch the trailer? What do you think of the trailer? What do you think of the show? Leave your thoughts on any of those questions wherever it is that you can. And just like that, that's all we have for you today. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Google Podcasts, Listen Notes, the Podcast Index, Stitcher, and more. And if you want to help out the show, please give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you can, and follow our social media pages that are listed in the description. We'll see you next time.